Hi everyone, my name is Britain Cline and welcome to this week's edition of Level Up from Behind the Counter.
Yes, and I'm William Cline, publisher, and welcome to this new series. This is a retailer to retailer podcast series, and we're proud to actually have our first real guest. We had a pilot last week
That's
with
right.
Jen and Rich from International Scuba, and our very first guest
Yep.
this week is Britain.
That's right. This week we have joining us Jeff Cinciripino, former owner of Scuba Shack in Rocky Hill, Connecticut, as well as the founder of the Scuba International Alliance of Connecticut. Jeff, welcome to the new show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
So Jeff's an old friend of ours.
That's right.
He's been writing for us for over a year. I think we're in the 12 or 13 articles he's written. He's done a fantastic job of really trying to communicate to other retailers some best practices and some ideas that he has and things
Totally.
that's worked well for him. So I can't wait to dig into today's show.
Yeah, it's going to be a great show today. But Jeff, just to kind of jump right into things, right? Last year, we did a series of articles in the magazine with Dive Ventures about selling the dive shop. And that was really from the perspective of the buyer. So we thought maybe today we could get a little bit more of your perspective on maybe what it's like to be the seller. So Jeff, you did end up selling Scuba Shack in Rocky Hill, Connecticut, a small local dive shop last year. But could uh, as a retailer, could you maybe give some guidance or tips on maybe some things to consider?
It's a good question.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when those articles started hitting last year with Dive Ventures on, selling dive shops, I thought it was kind of prophetic because we were in the final stages of our sale of the dive shop. But I think the reasons that people, like they said in those articles and on the Level Up podcast, they're all very personal reasons that people look to exit a business and move on. Ours was really about looking to retire from the world of business and to do some other things. But I knew early on we had a time horizon, and we prepared. It took us about 2 years to really get to the point where we were able to close a deal on the business. And what we really did was we started, like I said, 2 years in advance, and I put together a team. Like anything, you need a team to do a lot of this stuff. And the first thing I did was reach out to some consultants for some help, and I went to the Service Corps of Retired Executives, and they're a really great organization. If you need help with business problems, you can reach out to them, and they'll assign you a mentor. In this case, I had a couple of mentors that helped me take a look at the business from a different lens. We're deep inside the numbers every day and the business and how it operates, a scuba business, but really looking at it through a different lens as someone who's actually going to buy the business. And of course, you want to put together the rest of your team, your accountants. Obviously, you want to make sure they're in the loop and can guide you along the line. And then at the right time, bring in your legal help, get your lawyer involved, because you're going to need to write
Right.
some agreements down the line for the sale. But I think if you're really looking at selling your business, first thing that we did was, we were coming out of COVID, which really, no one, it was unprecedented. How was business going to go
Right.
as you're coming out of this pandemic? So the first thing that we did was we did our SWOT analysis, our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And that kind of gave us some ideas around how we wanted to position the business over the next year or so to be able to come out of COVID and be in a position to sell.
Totally.
So we really wanted to strengthen up the balance sheet, which took a hit in COVID, and we really wanted to focus on our financial position. So we came up with a plan, redid our business plan around post-COVID, which helped us to get to some of the things that we needed to do. So with all that said, again, it took us a couple of years to get all that in place. Uh, but then comes the really interesting part when it's time to really market your business and try to find buyers. You have to be really realistic in the valuation of the business.
And that's
How
hard.
much is it?
That's very hard for
That's right.
business owners. That's probably the hardest process.
Hmm.
That is really hard because we all like to think that what we have is a lot more valuable than what somebody
A
is
golden
going
egg,
to
right?
pay.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Take your car to the car dealer and see what
Right.
they'll
Yeah.
give
Yeah.
you,
Right.
That's right.
Right.
not what the tax man is asking for the taxes on it, right? So be realistic in your valuation. Go through a number of different things. You know, you can do multipliers of your sales. You can do asset only sales. You can do a lot of different things. So be realistic in how you're evaluating it, because that dictates how many buyers or potential buyers you're going to get to the table. And then once you do that and you value it, you have to create what we created was a business sell plan. It's much like a business plan, but it positions the
Interesting.
business for a potential buyer in
Wow.
what you've done, where you've been, and more importantly, where you think the business can go. So they're not going to just want to buy status quo. They're going to want to say, well, how's the
They
business
want
going
a
to grow? So you
roadmap for
got
the future, right? Because they got to get their
Right.
investment back, you know.
with that. Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
that's how we went through it. So it was a long process. I'm not saying that it'll take everybody 2 years, but it is a process. And you need help. So reach out to consultants, to accountants, to the legal. Um, I did not use a business broker, a sales, a
Right.
real estate broker for that. We didn't need to go that route because we had a different path to take.
And
No doubt.
how'd you find, or who was the buyers, or how'd you find the buyers?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting because I had a partner in the business. Now he wanted to see the business continue on, as did we. The Scuba Shack in Rocky Hill was over 45 years old.
Right.
We're Scuba Shack is Patty store number 38. So
Wow.
Wow.
that's a
Pretty.
pretty low number when it
Yeah.
gets to
Yeah.
that. So everybody wanted to see it continue on. So he was able to put together a team of the independent instructors who were working for us. He got a team together, and it resulted in them positioning. They kind of understood the business. They knew the clientele, and they were able to come up with the right. We were able to negotiate the right deal for them to take it over. So, and that was very early on. The consultants had given me that advice. They said, you're probably going to want to look at somebody who already understands the business or is in the business and is really can take over the shop and move it forward.
No doubt. Wow. That's some really amazing
Yeah.
advice.
Good advice there. Good advice.
Yes, look
Definitely.
inside. You might have people there who are interested in it. I actually, I talked to a gentleman from, I think he was down in San Antonio, who, took over. He had took over a shop. He had been working with them down there. I think he retired from the Air Force or something like that, and he was working with the dive shop and finally took it over. So really look inside. You might have the opportunity there.
Right around it.
Definitely.
Good.
Wow, that's incredible. So with that being said, how did the transition go? And what advice would you maybe give sellers during the transition
Yeah.
period
It's got to be
itself?
challenging.
Tra-
Yeah, emotional and all
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
transition. Yeah, it's an emotional time, right?
Yeah.
It's your baby, and we had gone back and forth about what was the appropriate length of a transition. We had written in some things around, 6 months of support. Then became 3 months of support. But by the time we finally settled on it, I think the sweet spot for us was 6 weeks. And that gave us enough time to be in the shop working with the new management team on the mechanics of running the business. not the strategy or the
Mm.
the
Right.
the, the way you wanted to take the business, but the mechanics, showing them how things got done in the point of sale system specifically, or how to address certain issues or work with certain dealers on things, and making the contacts and stuff like that. So we focused on really the mechanics of running the business, and that really worked out well. What we didn't want to do was, get into trying to direct strategy or guide in how to move the business forward and stuff like that,
Gotcha.
because you have to realize you're not the owner anymore.
Right.
And you know they came in and made a lot of changes to the retail space, to the showroom and things like that, and you just have to accept it. And those things were, it's not personal at that point. It's not you did anything wrong. It's just they have a different
They want to do something
viewpoint,
different, right?
Totally.
Right.
and we all want to do that. So that's an important piece. Is you're not the owner anymore. And boy, it took me a long time to stop saying we, because
Right.
it wasn't me
Right.
anymore.
Well, and that segues really nicely in the next question, which is,
Right.
what do you think you did really well that helped build you and made you a successful shop? And I think this is what
Great
other
question.
retailers would like to know, that they need to strive for if they want to get to the point where they
Mm.
can retire like yourself.
Yeah, I think the most important thing, and I think we did it really well. And it wasn't as a result of my doing it, but it was customer service. And my wife was also my partner in the business, and she had a customer service background. She ran a customer service department for a large organization that did crafts and retail, things like that. And she had done that for a number of years. So her main focus was on customer service. Everybody who came in the door was treated with respect, was treated like as a valued customer, and everybody was treated the same. Returning emails, religious about that, not letting an email slip by, answering the phone. If we got a Google report that there was a missed call, she would get upset. So we really focused on customer service, and I think we did that really, really well. Additionally, the shop was very successful at professional development. We would bring people in every year, and we would have two or three, instructors move up through the ranks, bringing in dive masters. So that was a really important piece that we had to do, was get our professional development. So we always had instructors on the table, ready to go and move forward. And the other thing that we focused on over that 2-year period that I said was really look at our travel program really hard, and realize that we had to build a really good, solid travel program. We had done well with travel, but we could do better. And we bumped our travel top line up by over 40% over that couple of years. Now,
Wow.
some of that was
That's
bounce
great.
back from COVID, but some of it was looking for some more exotic things. We had a
Right.
huge trip to the Philippines, where I think we had 30 people fly
Jeez.
halfway
That's
around the
Wow.
amazing.
world for a
That's a
Wow.
trip
huge trip.
to the
Yeah.
Yeah.
Philippines. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was. You talk about the customer service aspect of getting 30 people
Hmm.
from the East Coast to the United States to Manila, and
Yeah.
we had a great time. We did
Like
a tour of
7,000
Manila.
miles away, and a lot of flights. Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
And
That's
I think
amazing.
finally the other thing was we did a really good bounce back from COVID. We didn't know where things were going to happen, what was going to go on, and that lingered on and on for a long time. Supply chain
Right.
challenges, trying to find boots, trying to find neoprene, trying to find regulators, was a bit of a challenge, but we managed to survive through it. And actually, by the time we really started looking at our at in earnest at the sale, because it took us almost 6 months to negotiate the deal. Um, in 2023, we had the best year we ever had.
That's
Wow.
wonderful.
So we
That's
really
great.
put a plan in place to execute on that.
That's
Definitely. That's amazing. So, with that being said, I think that's so interesting because I have a lot of background in retail myself, and customer service was always something I was constantly trying to evolve at,
That's
trying to
true.
see, what could I get better. So I'm curious, and this wasn't anything we prepared, but do you think that the customer service and these other two little conditions, do you think that maybe in doing and in putting a lot of attention and urgency into that, do you think that it maybe had like a trickle down effect, maybe in the success of the other?
Uh, Yeah, I think it absolutely does because you know it's really one of those things around you're in it for the long haul with
Right,
customers. You never know when your next big purchaser or your next instructor is going to walk through that door. And sometimes it might take a year before they're ready to make a decision.
Right.
Sometimes it might take 2 years,
hmm
but they always come back and say, I'm coming back to you because you took the time to explain to me what it was. And we heard it a number of times. Well, I called XYZ shop, they didn't get back to me.
right,
Or they didn't have their, or they, or, and part of customer service too is you really have to keep your website updated. You
right,
And
have
it's
to
so
have the
so so
information,
important, so true, and so few people
you
put the
know.
time and resources into keeping that information updated. You
yeah,
come across a lot of websites that still have travel plans from 2023,
yeah,
on their side or something.
Yeah,
2017. Yeah,
Right.
and you have to do that. So that's all part of the customer service thing. So it
right,
does pay off. Maybe not today, and that's why my wife was a stickler about it. She would sometimes tell me I can't come out front because it
Mhm.
would be, I'm very aggressive. I want things to happen right away. But
totally.
sometimes with customers, it takes a while, and you have to have the patience and the understanding that not everybody is ready to make the commitment.
hmm
But if you take the time with them today, they may be back in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, a year, but
Absolutely.
they'll come back.
That's
That's
golden
awesome. I
advice, isn't
love
it?
that advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. But is there anything that you think that gee, I really would have loved to maybe spend a little bit more time on that, or I wish I had done that better. Is there anything that sticks out to you, maybe along the lines of that?
Big thing, and I think this goes back to kind of the point that Richard and Jen were making, Rich and Jen were making last week, that we could have done better with the local diving.
Mm,
You got to keep people diving, and I used to often joke that we're a dive shop that doesn't dive. We were in the pool, we were out doing open water training, we were training the whole year. And I think doing more of that local diving really it gets people in keeps people diving, gets them to travel, gets them to want to do more. And we used to do a trip down to Pennsylvania to Dutch Springs. We do that 4 times a year, and unfortunately, when they shifted over, when it got sold, we stopped doing that. But that was some awesome times where you'd get a group and you get them out diving. You have a lot of fun, and they end up being more engaged diver, buying more gear, and going on trips with you. So I
Trips, yeah,
wish we
for
had done
sure.
a little bit more.
And that's pretty good. That's pretty good advice. And
that's
I
great
think
advice. Yeah.
that is, and you mentioned Jen and Rich, and Rich has really come up with a secret sauce for that.
Got it.
I went to an event last summer out at the local kind of a quarry we have here that does diving, and I think I counted 70 customers out there. I mean, he had 50 just on a little disco thing he did,
It's
and
insane.
there was no reason for it. So,
Yeah, little
I mean,
disco
this
ball
was
underwater.
it was
Yeah.
amazing. So, I mean, that
Yeah,
local is so important.
you're right.
So, speaking of local, what the heck have you been doing these days?
Well, here's the other thing. My advice to anybody who is fortunate enough to look at selling the business. Scuba diving is in our blood. It's what it's really an important piece of who we are.
That's right.
So I've stayed very, very much engaged with the industry. Part of our negotiation for the sale was that I would take over as voting member for the new company in Didima organization, so I could stay on the board of directors. So I still have one more year, or
That's
I'm in
awesome.
my final year of that. And I stayed involved with DEMA on the show committee. helping to drive how the show operates, and then took over the chairman of the Retail Engagement Committee this year for the 2025 show. In addition to that, I continue to work with the Boston Sea Rovers and their clinic. We're working on our 72nd clinic. I'm helping them with the sales to get the booths and exhibitors in place. And of course, still trying to find topics to write about for
Yeah,
the,
you've
the
done a great job with
magazine.
that.
Yeah,
Wow.
loving those.
Loving those. Loving everything you've
My
written.
wife say, "Did you run out yet?" I'm like, "Well, I'm
You got
getting close."
45 years worth of stuff to write about. You're not going to run out anytime
Getting
soon.
close. Getting close. And then another thing that I'm pretty proud of is I became a dive pirate this year. So, I went down with the Dive Pirate organization to Cayman Brac,
Very cool.
participate in their annual trip. And I worked with Helen down there, Helen and Greg. They were on your marketing minutes.
Yes. Thank you for that
I
suggestion,
worked
by the
with
way.
them to
Yeah.
get my scuba my Scubability adaptive dive buddy rating. So
Wow.
now I can work with adaptive divers as their buddy and helping them. Just a phenomenal experience and something, I'm planning to go back with them next year. I think they're heading to Bonaire. So I'm now a dive pilot.
That's
And if
incredible.
that's not enough, I I volunteered to help Nicole Russell and Tom Ingram with the Historical Diving Society on their membership committee. So we're trying to bump up the membership for the Historical Diving Society in the U.S. and we're going to be focused on how we can grow that. But I think the biggest thing that I'm working on right now is the nonprofit that I started back in 2022 as part of while I was still the owner of Scuba Shack, and that's the Scuba Educational Alliance of Connecticut. And the reason that I started that is because I was seeing as a retailer that the financial barriers for young men and women or youth to get into scuba was just getting higher and higher.
It's tough.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want, the future of diving is not me. The future of diving is the next
That guy right
generation
there.
of diving.
Right. Yeah.
There you go. The next generation of divers. But more importantly, the reason that I think that the diver, getting them into scuba diving is so important is because scuba divers are ambassadors for the ocean.
Mhm.
We want to protect it.
That's right.
We want to be able to have this environment out there. We see what's happening to the reefs. We see the bleaching. We see the fish. Where are they? You don't see them in some cases. So so we were trying to combine the two aspects of creating a new generation of ocean stewards by helping them with the financial aspects of getting into scuba diving. And
Amazing.
we've been pretty successful in our limited way. We can't do a lot. We don't have a lot of money, which is typical of most nonprofits, small ones like I have. But in 2023, we were able to do a large Discover Scuba at a couple of local high schools. And out of that, we were able to bring three students through their open water training. And I'm very proud. Two of them have continued on diving. One of them, the young man, is going to be entering his senior year of high school this year, and he's worked his way all the way up. He's going to become a PADI dive master, actually, probably
Dive
by
pro.
March when
Wow.
he turns
That's
18.
incredible.
So all the way up. And then our other young woman who's involved applied for one of our 2025 scholarships for advanced open water and was selected. And she just finished up her advanced open water. Now, the other thing about it, both these kids are pursuing marine biology
That's very
degrees.
cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they would have never had the exposure to scuba diving. They would have
That's
never
right.
had that opportunity to do it along the way. We're also doing some outreach programs where we're doing some coral conservation courses. In 2024, we didn't really do any diving because I was involved with the sale of the shop and all of that other kind of stuff. But we did do a couple of coral conservation classes, and we certified 23 high school kids
That's
in
great.
coral conservation.
That's great.
That's amazing.
So,
Great efforts and great
so
work up there.
a lot of stuff going on. So, I think that that's an important piece for anybody who's looking to get out of the dive shop owning, running a dive shop or selling their dive shop. There's a whole bunch of opportunities to stay engaged with the diving community on a number of fronts, whether it's volunteering on a DEMA committee or being a dive pirate or one of the other adaptive organizations, or helping out with one of the nonprofits. There's a lot of nonprofits. One of the things I've been doing, is I am going to try and do another term on the DEMA board under the A3 category, which includes nonprofits. I've been looking at that, and there are a lot of nonprofit organizations supporting diving, and they're all incredible. So a big shout out to all those nonprofits who are giving their time and energy to try and move forward with the diving industry.
Absolutely. And if
Definitely.
you're a retailer out there watching this show, and we hope a lot of you are going to watch this show, really important. DEMA needs your help, and that is run for the board.
That's right.
It's a great experience. Jeff can tell you it doesn't take a huge amount of your time, and you really truly can make a difference in our industry. So, and retailers, DEMA is all about retailers. That's what the whole show's for. So, thank you for your service. I serve on the board with Jeff, and it's been wonderful. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember 2021, the show was just coming out of COVID out in Las Vegas. And I wasn't really involved with DEMA other than going to the show at that point in time. And I reached out to Tom and I said, I want to talk to you when I'm out there. And I'm like, I'll never get a response from this guy. Well, Tom got right back to me, said, let's spend some time out on the DEMA floor. And it's just been nonstop with DEMA ever since, when you get to see what it can do and how it can operate. And my advice is, there's a lot of things people say about DEMA, right? You hear a lot of stuff. And, I my position was to Tom, and this is what I've kind of have tried to do with the board, is like, we need to have, where's DEMA going? It's not, yes, it's important where it's been and what it was, but it's never going to be what it was 30 years ago.
Right.
So what's DEMA going to be in the future? And I think the show is proving that it's getting its traction, and it's really becoming that place where everybody wants
yeah,
to.
it's what I always say.
Definitely.
There's 900 people on the board that want to change our industry for the better. We just all don't know how to do it. Or we
Right.
don't want to, and that's my summation after 3 terms or 4 terms on the board.
Right.
So,
Well,
Britton, what a great show, huh?
that's right. And Jeff, speaking of DEMA, we're so looking forward to seeing you both at DEMA and this fall. But speaking of DEMA, we're only about 100 days away,
I know,
or
and
3
and
issues.
look for Jeff. He's going to be part of our Roundtable Writers Conference. We're going to do on the show floor, so you don't have to leave
That's
the
right.
floor to go listen to Jeff. We're going to have a bunch
Stay
of our writers,
engaged.
just like last year. I think we had standing room only. It'll be at the Resource Center for DEMA, which is near DEMA Central. And look for the schedule. We're going to do 2 of them this year.
That's
So,
right.
who do we got lined up for our next From Behind the Counter?
Right. So for our next guests on Level Up from Behind the Counter, we have Rachel and Michael, the owners of American Dive Zone in Grand Rapids.
You know,
Stay tuned for
it's a
that.
great story. This couple, they came up to our booth at DEMA last year, and Jeff, you'll love this story. Just briefly, kind of a commercial for it, because we're filming it next week. But they said, "Well, we just bought a dive shop. Can you change the name on our magazine to a different owner?" And we said, "Well, sure." Well, tell us a little about that. Well, he was from a mergers and acquisition background. I believe she was a marketing executive with one of the companies. They're both from New York City, and they wanted to move closer to his parents in Grand Rapids. So they just sent emails out to all the dive shops in the area, and kind of cold emails. And one person responded and said, "Sure, I'll sell you my shop." They literally just bought the shop, and they don't know nothing really about the dive industry.
Yeah.
So they're starting actually a new series. July's the first issue, called From Behind the Counter, just like this series is. And they're writing about their experience, what it was like to cold walk into a dive shop. And there was a book years ago written called Don't Stop the Carnival. And it was about a playwright that went to the Caribbean to buy a resort because he'd always heard how cool it would be, thinking it'd be to buy a resort. And of course, the book is about everything could possibly go wrong in that environment. And so
It's all about the world.
yeah, I'm looking forward to their article. So that's gonna be a great
Yeah, it'll
interview
be
next week.
great.
So Jeff,
It'll be
thanks for being
fantastic.
on
Jimmy
our.
Buffett did it.
Thanks for being
Jimmy
our.
Buffett did a Jimmy
That's
Buffett did
right.
a
He did a play on that. Yeah, a
Broadway
play.
play.
Yeah, I never saw it, but I bet it's great. So thanks again for being a guest. Remember, you can go to scubadivingindustry.com. You can see
That's right.
all of these podcasts. We got Marketing Minutes. We got Level Up from our regular magazine. The magazine's out as of yesterday, the July issue.
right.
Take a look at it. Look at Jeff's article. Great article on it, as
Yeah.
usual. So thanks again, and that's going to do it for us.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next time.